Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Worcester City Council, held this Monday, June 6, 2022. We're here in council chambers, and this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. It is after 7:30 p.m. Things ran a little late with a Public Utilities Committee meeting. Because of the holiday for Juneteenth, the next regularly scheduled council meeting will be Tuesday, June 21st, hey, first day of summer 2022. And I'd be amiss for those who have relatives and who fought in the Second World War to note that today's D-Day, which had a profound effect on the world at large, and I know that many of us had grandparents or great-grandparents that landed there in the beaches of France on this day. So hopefully they were fondly remembered here recently at Memorial Day. At this point, Ms. DiPaolo, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Cavan. Ms. Knappich?
Here.
Mr. Myers?
Here.
Mr. Reynolds?
Here.
Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Mr. Silvestri?
Here.
And Ms. Warden?
Here.
We do have a quorum, and Mr. Cavan did contact me earlier today that said because of circumstances that cropped up, he wouldn't be here this evening. So hope all is well with him. The agenda will remain as presented, and at this time, I would ask that you stand and join the council in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I don't know about you folks, but the pollen and stuff is killing me lately, which I never had. So getting old is not always what it's cracked up to be. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of May 16, 2022.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Silvestri to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sanders. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. And the minutes of May 16, 2022 are hereby approved. Mr. Mayor, welcome. And look forward to what you have to say. And I hope you saw that nice article that someone wrote there from Cleveland, whose child just graduated from College of Worcester, about the city of Worcester.
Absolutely.
That's probably the best kind of advertising one could ever ask for.
You are right on the money with that, President Bytendike. So, welcome, council members. Nice to see everyone this evening, and appreciate getting a chance to visit with you. Since the last time we met, the Airstream group came and went from our town. They were here from Thursday, May 19th to Sunday, May 22nd. They were actually a really friendly group, very accommodating, very welcome with their dollars to spend in our community, and they did. So we had really no problems with the group at all. Some people were upset they couldn't get to the downtown, but truly they could. They just had to go a different route than normal. But the one thing is we did have many compliments about our community from many of them. In fact, I have a real nice voicemail that I need to reply to about a lady from Canton who came over with part of the Airstream group. And she'd never been to Worcester before, and she says that we have a wonderful city here, and she's excited to come back now and see our town. So a few perks like that out there that we did receive. The restaurants didn't see the bounce that they were hoping to see out of it. At this point, I don't know if it was because the locals thought that they would be too crowded to go down to, so they sort of stayed away and went to other restaurants in town, or if the parking was an issue. Who knows? But I know the restaurants were a little bit disappointed on it. would we do it again? If I was in this position, I'd say, yeah, we would do it again, but we wouldn't let them camp in the downtown area. I think that was the only thing that was sort of a trip point. We tried to steer them to the fairgrounds to begin with, and they didn't want to do that. Well, this time, if I was still here in that spot, I would say you've got to do that, or you can't come back and do this thing. So, but it was a good group with the fairgrounds close by, and they do allow camping down there. I think it would be a wonderful fit. So, our thanks to Main Street for trying new things. You know, that they were the ones that this was nested under because they really run the downtown as far as the programming and events. So you know, you never know until you try something. We celebrated Memorial Day after a 2-year hiatus. It's nice to have that recognition of our veterans again, and to have normal events coming back into play for our community. We were also able to hold the All-American Kids Day event this past Saturday in the downtown. It's really a nice recognition for 20 elementary students who are nominated by their teachers to receive this award. So a fun event there, and a ton of kids down, and you know, lots of safety forces and services throughout our community there to make it a fun event for the kids. Had the pleasure of swearing in 4 new officers and then 1 promotion to sergeant a few hours ago. Officially added to our team, Patrolman Alex Kraske, Mike Covington, Kagan Schaefer, and Dan Simmons, and promotion to Sergeant Daniel Whitmore. Surprise Commendation Award of Merit for Jordan Telquist. And Matt, I'll turn to you and let you explain what that was about.
So Jordan didn't know we were going to surprise her, so we were able to surprise her at the swearing in with a small award. I got an email from both her Sergeant Kolick, and Patrolman Hall, former Medway director. Some of you remember Donnie Hall, works on her shift. On the evening of May 3rd, we had actually 2 shootings in town within about 90 minutes of each other. One of those saw the victim nearly lose their life from the injuries. Jordan was the officer in charge that night, and during those chaotic and frantic moments, she remained calm, collected, while directing others what to do. Resulted in the recovery of the firearm and a confession, and several of the officers on that shift had only been basically on their own for a short while and had never handled anything like that. While acting as the officer in charge and kind of taking control of those scenes, she was also acting as a field training officer and had a brand new lateral officer with her that was in his 2nd day of training. So was wearing a lot of hats that night, and she did a really nice job, and I got those 2 letters, so we recognized her with an award of merit. So
Great. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. So pretty neat award for Jordan, and well deserved from the sounds of it. And that trainee that she had in the car after just a few hours on the job, I'm sure they were pretty astounded by what they might encounter out there in the policing world.
Question is, did the trainee come back after an evening like that?
the trainee is one of the 4 that the mayor swore in. So
There you go.
All right.
Now they're stuck.
Now they're there. That's right. I mentioned in my last mayor's report about getting the TIF district enacted for our city. August 15th is the first time that council could hear that or have it as a piece of business in front of you. Now, we're still on summer break at that point in time. So if people would like to keep this TIF district moving forward at its pace that's set right now, it would probably take a special meeting to get together for that one special item. And I'm really looking to council to give us guidance as an administration if you want to do something like that. I know the housing piece has been a big player for us in the community, and I know people are anxious to keep that moving forward with as much speed as we possibly can. So if you could let us at the administration know by the next meeting so that we can plan on what we're going to do with the summertime.
Well, obviously, we could have it at any hour and any day, so
Absolutely.
it could be
Anytime after the 15th.
noon, it could be, first thing in the morning.
I'd like to say, the county's resolution is dated June 1st, so the very earliest we could do it is September 1st. So the
Oh.
August date is off the table.
Oh, well,
So
that's
then
new
we're-
news
and
to
we're
me,
meet-
so,
Yeah, we just got that information last week.
okay.
And so December 6th, I think, is the normal first meeting back.
Yeah, the
September.
day after
Or September
Labor.
6th.
Yeah, the day after
It's a
Labor
long
Day.
break.
Yeah, that would be a nice break.
We're down to 5-day delta.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if
So
that's.
as far as I know, I don't think there's a way around that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's set in stone at the state level, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well then we'll just stick with the normal meeting in October or at September to bring that forward then. All right, and I will end with some nice press for our city, as President Beitendijk alluded to. It came from the College of Worcester parent whose daughter graduated this year. The mother and writer of the article is Susan Glasser on cleveland.com. The article is named after 4 years, a farewell to Worcester, but I'll be back. It's a wonderful article with pictures about all the things they love about our city. It's been picked up by the Plain Dealer and the travel section of CNN. So we've gotten some amazing press out of this article about a mother's enjoyment of her daughter's college town. So thanks to all for making us proud to live in our city here. So, and with that, that is my report, President
All right.
Beitendijk.
And I would be amiss not to recognize Andre Doherty and his fantastic finance department for getting yet another award. Do you have any room left on your wall? Well, no, you don't. I've seen your office. You never had enough room. But congratulations. You have a crack team, and you've done a great job as our Director of Finance, and wish you many, many more awards here. And you're blushing, I hate to tell you. Okay, there were no petitions. We do have,
It's for the miscellaneous.
oh, that's for miscellaneous. We don't have anyone signed up to speak on an issue before council this evening. Committee reports, we had an extensive Public Utility Committee meeting. Mr. Silvestri, would you like to give a brief synopsis? Although brief, I'm never sure is in your vocabulary, but I'll still turn it over to you anyways.
Well, I'll try not to blush like Andre at that comment, but I'll do my best to keep it brief. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, the Utilities Committee did meet, and we went over some of the needed maintenance items, but really the bulk of the presentation consisted of our cogen system connected with our wastewater facility. And years ago, I remember a lot of options being on the table, and the city investing in a locomotive engine. Should the power fail, we would still be able to operate at a certain capacity and be able to process the wastewater. So we've come a long way from that. We had a quasar public-private partnership in which we took ownership of that facility a number of years ago. I can't believe it's over 15 years ago. It doesn't seem possible. But anyway, there's 4 major goals that were outlined: repair of the facility, improvement of the digestion process, higher efficiency there, also receiving of organics or feedstocks, and then fourthly, generating a higher volume of biogas. There was a lot of discussion about efficiencies, replacement of items that either have failed or are nearing the end of their useful life. We talked about the cost of gas polishing and then the additional value that would generate upon the sale of the product. So if gas gets purified to a high enough level, you can actually have a memorandum of understanding, and through partnerships you can introduce it into the natural gas pipeline system, and there are people that are really good at that, and there were discussions about how we might stay out of that business but still maybe come up a notch and be able to realize more revenue from the generation of that of that biogas. Really, the long and short of the whole presentation is, in order to really do what needs done, we're probably looking at something like $5.7 million. And there was another $5 million in upgrades to the plant itself, not the power generation side, but just the plant itself in terms of disinfectant and screening and grit removal and flow and those types of issues. So hopefully that was brief enough. It was a lot to be dumped on us in a short period of time. I know it was precipitated by the imminent departure of our manager, utilities manager, Nathan Coy, who's going to be leaving the area and relocating personally. So if there are questions, I would encourage both members of City Council, members of the public, to contact the administration. I know they've generated a lot of information. It seems like some of this information has kind of been compounding and has been kind of under the radar and not stuff that we've been aware of along the way for whatever reasons, but that's the nature of a closed system that it often is operating at capacity. So reach out, give them phone calls, emails, whatever. They've been super responsive. I applaud their innovation and ingenuity in generating the system and all the work that's been put into it. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, there was a lot of information, and not all of it did we have time to really discuss. So certainly, I know this administration will be happy to answer questions, or they know who to field you to answer those questions. Gosh, I can't believe it. You're around back to the point in time of having to look at an annual tax budget. It seems like we just did it, and here a year has gone by. To do so, we have to have a public hearing, which I will look to Mr. Sanders, our chairman of our Finance Committee, to chair. So at this point in time, I'll turn the floor over to you, Mr. Sanders, for a public hearing on our annual tax budget.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we will open up the public hearing for our annual tax budget pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 5705.28. The City of Worcester is required to adopt an annual tax budget for the succeeding fiscal year on or before July 15th of 2022, and we need to have that filed with the Wayne County Auditor prior to July 20th of 2022. And so with that, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak for our tax budget, you can take the podium up there and share your thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak in favor of that if I could.
Oh, certainly.
Since I am the author. I would just add that, as Mr. Sanders said, Chapter 5705 requires us to annually produce this tax budget. It's a financial plan for next year, what's coming in, where it's going, our plan for operations, and also you'll see there's also carryover balances. This is submitted to the County Budget Commission, which consists of the auditor, the treasurer, and the prosecutor, and it's used to set our millage for our property taxes, which will be 4.2 mils, which is the same, it won't change. I do want to point out just two brief things. Page 8 is there, it's called a Statement of Permanent Improvements. This is simply pulled from our appropriations budget for our long-term planning. And then page 9, there's three items of debt that are paid off this year. One is rather large. Our 2005 wastewater treatment plant equipment loan is paid off in 2022. So next year, there's going to be about 515 grand that we're not going to be paying on that loan.
So that explains why we need all these new repairs. We just get out from underneath that debt, and now we have to pay for new repairs.
Well, coincidentally. So the other two, there's a geo issue, a street issue from 2007. That's 78,000 we won't be paying, and then OPWC loan of 12,000, street loan.
Could you just, for people who might be looking in or might view this later, what's our estimated revenue and what's our estimated
So-
expenses for
Okay.
2023?
So for the city's general fund, we're looking at about $28 million, or 29 million, I'm sorry, 29,500,000. So coming in and going out approximately. That does also include a large portion of, I think I budgeted 4.7 million to transfer to the capital fund. So that's going for our streets and other capital improvements, reinvestment into our governmental facilities. That does not include your business-type assets such as water, wastewater, and storm drainage. So
Or the hospital?
or the hospital, which is, yeah, correct. Good point.
Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, well, with that, again, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for the annual tax budget? Is there anyone that would like to speak against the annual tax budget? All right, well, we've had, at this point, I guess we've had our public hearing, and we'll call it closed.
All right, and I would presume that, I know it's going to have its first reading tonight. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I know you're never supposed to assume anything, but that you're planning to pass it or offer it up for passage next meeting? 'Cause-
Well, actually, it had its first reading on 5/16.
Oh, it
So at
did,
this
didn't
point,
it?
yeah, so at this
Yes,
point,
you're
yes, this
right.
will be the second reading, and the plan will be to move it
Yeah,
along
and I
this
don't know
evening.
why I said that. It clearly says second reading on my agenda here, so sorry about that. All right, we do have, as part of our unfinished business, besides the annual, second reading of the annual tax budget, 4 other items that we need to look at. The first one is ordinance number 2022-11. And Ms. Warren, since you had presented it previously, we decided not to change in midstream the legislator who was crossing it. So hope you don't mind, we kept you in there, and I didn't see anyone, fighting for that favor. So anyways, before I get to you, I'll ask Mr. Paulo to please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2022-11, an ordinance amending Part 11 zoning of the codified ordinances of the City of Worcester, Ohio, to rezone land to C3 General Commercial for property located on Akron Road and Enterprise Parkway.
Okay, Ms. Warden, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is a request to change the zoning of 2 properties located along the east side of Akron Road and the west side of Enterprise Parkway, made up of 6.275 acres and owned by J. Baker Industries. Currently, the properties are zoned I-1 or Office and Limited Industrial District, and the request is to change the zoning to C3 or General Commercial District. On April 7th, the Planning Commission voted 5-2 to recommend approval of the zoning change, and a public hearing took place at the beginning of our May 16th council meeting, where the property owner, Mr. Baker, spoke in favor of the zoning change, and Mr. Vince Marion, our city's planning and zoning manager, spoke in opposition to the request. Mr. Baker has a potential buyer for one of his parcels, and this buyer hopes to build a dentist office on the land. The current zoning doesn't allow for any medical or dental offices, among its many restrictions, I might add. Mr. Baker feels that by rezoning both parcels, they'll be more marketable to potential buyers. And the city's position on this is that it's not consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and that C3 draws, the C3 district would draw a higher rate of traffic than the current I-1 district, and that that's not ideal for the 585 corridor. Currently, the land is surrounded on 3 sides by I-1 or I-2 zoning, with residential 1 or R1 zoning on the west side, which is directly across Akron Road. An alternative solution would be for the applicant to apply for a use variance of the south parcel. However, I understand that's very costly, and it requires the submission of architectural plans, and that's something that the applicant wouldn't have drawn up until they're certain that the property could be used in the manner that they wish. So I've kind of mentioned to some of my colleagues up here on council that we did read this before, and I know a few of you were not here at the last meeting, but I would like to make a motion to place this on third and final reading this evening.
Okay, but may I just make a slight correction?
Do we not have to?
Oh, yeah, well,
I always do that.
the owner is Chesterland Estates, PLL.
Oh,
and
I misread that then, I apologize.
Not Mr. Baker. He and his partner own that.
It did say in the description, Steve Landers with J. Baker Industries requesting approval, so maybe that's.
Well, yeah, they are the,
He
Agent.
has a few companies.
they
I
are,
thought he owned it, so,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, if you look at the,
He does own it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that change being noted,
so you're still making the same motion,
I am, thank you.
All right, motion to suspend the rules by Ms. Warden. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knappich. Would you mind calling the roll, please, Mr. Paulo, on the motion to suspend the rules?
Knappich,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
and Reynolds.
Yes.
All right, the rules have been suspended. I turn to you again, Ms. Warden.
Thank you. I'd like to move to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Warden,
Second.
second by Mr. Myers. Any further discussion? Mr.
Yes.
Myers?
Thank you. Did Mr. Baker want to speak, or? I would like to speak. I'll save my questions until after you've spoken, sir.
Hey, John, you want to turn the mic on, because I think Andre turned it off.
I can speak loud enough.
There we go.
I'm Jerry Baker. I live here in Worcester. I affirm to tell the truth. The property we're talking about is I-1, industrial. There's property across the street from my property, or our property, that is Pine Cove, the development, that I call it the Toposky development, that goes off of 585, and then there's a few random homes. If I look at 585 and you drive up from our property, you're gonna see some different things. You see Fastenal that we did get zoning for. And then you've got Culligan Water, and you've got, as you go on up through, you see the telephone companies, or all their equipment and all there, and it goes back to an office building, and back to another office building, and so it's a little bit of a mixed situation. We have a dentist that wants to build there, and I want to soften the zoning there because there's homes across the street, and quite a few people live there. And so we talked about getting a variance, and he wanted architectural drawings and the site plan, and we priced it out at about $17,000, $18,000, which I thought was ridiculous for someone to spend that doesn't know if they're going to get it or not. So I said, let's go for rezoning. And I wanted to go for C1, which is the softest of it. But guess what? Your zoning, to get a medical or dental office, we had to go up to C3. I think that zoning could be looked at. I think there's a fallacy there. But on the other side of it, if I went industrial there, we could have a 24-hour manufacturing facility there that might have semis coming in all through the day and night. And it could be a finishing facility that would put out some odor. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen in the present zoning. I really want to see it softened. I'd like to see the
people there that would go home at 5 o'clock in the evening, and the neighbors wouldn't see them till the next morning. That's my thought process. I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Ms. Knappich, you had a question?
Actually, I have a question for the city, and it goes along with what Mr. Baker was saying on the zoning. If under this C3, you can have contractors' offices and
You mean
other
under,
kinds
you mean
of
under
offices.
I-1? You mean under I-1, right?
Yes, under I-1, I'm sorry. Why is medical and dental offices carved out? Why are those carved out?
I can address that. Mr. President, members of council, thank you. It's primarily carved out because of, you're going to see walk-in traffic with a medical facility, with a doctor's office. You're going to have customers coming in, customers going out. Under a light manufacturing facility, you're going to have employees coming in and out at shift change. You're not going to have an all-day traffic of residential or of consumers coming in and out mixed in an industrial area with other truck traffic.
But you
So
would
I-
have
you're
people
looking at
coming
the
in all
use-
day if it was a law office.
You're looking
or an
at how the-
architect's office, which is also allowed.
You're looking at the customer base of who's going to be using the facility.
Well,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what your question was, Mr. Meyer.
You would have people coming in and going throughout the day, same as the dental office, with a business or professional offices or service establishment, which could be a law office or accounting's office. They're going to be the exact same kind of traffic appointments every 30 minutes with their accountant or their architect or any other professional services, counseling center. Those are all allowed. So the excuse that a dental office is going to cause a different type of traffic doesn't really make sense.
And I have to agree with that when you look at business services, when you look at business and professional offices, when you look at bars and taverns are allowed under C3. That's a little bit of traffic, and that's a little bit more traffic after 5 o'clock. Funeral homes and mortuaries, hotels or motels.
So that's
That's
what's
a-
permitted
those are
under the
C3
C3. That's what you're, that's what they
Right, and
request to
that's-
change
That's what
it
he's
to.
asking for.
Right, that's what he's asking for. Well, that's part of my concern, and I will get to that. But a good part of my concern is going with what Mr. Meyer said, in that there are other activities allowed under C3.
I-1.
All right, I'm sorry. COVID brain. That to me it's inconsistent. It's very inconsistent. But on the flip side is my concerns with some of the other activities that are in fact permitted under C3. I don't have a problem with the dental office. I do have a problem with but skilled nursing and personal care facilities. Those are going to cause traffic. Transitional housing, animal daycare and animal grooming, gas stations, automated repairs. There's bars and taverns. There's a lot of things that I'm concerned about because it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan. And another of my big concerns is the fact that the traffic that will be hitting 585, if in fact you open it up for a dentist's office, and then we have microbreweries and taverns and motels and hotels. And that doesn't mean that Mr. Baker would do that. But as we know, once you rezone something, it's rezoned for everybody for all time until you come back. And so that's a real concern of mine. The minimum lot area is smaller. It's much more congested to be in a C3 than an I-1. Those are the concerns that I have, and those are the concerns that I've heard from people in that area, quite frankly, is that, if we knew that it would be a dentist's office, or if we knew it would just be something that would be a business office, that's fine, but shoot, it could be it could be a bank, it could be a funeral home, it could be a kennel, it could be all kinds of different things that would bring a lot of traffic and a lot of congestion. And those are the concerns that I've heard. It's her meeting, she has to go.
Mr. Baker?
Mr. Baker, if we could have you go back to the microphone.
C3 is not my choice. C3 gets us to have a dental office. I think there's a fallacy in the zoning booklet for that. As far as traffic, only one curb cut off of 585, we have agreed to that there will only be one. That's not much. That's probably half a mile long, isn't it, through? I'm not, I said early on that I want to see people there that leave at 5 o'clock and go home. Okay? And the people that live there are gonna come home at 5 o'clock. We're not gonna put a brewery or a bar there. I have control of that.
With the current zoning, though, it could be a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week Amazon distribution center, which
It could
has
be.
truck traffic.
It's not big enough, but it could be.
Yeah.
Or it could be
But
some of the
it's
things I
zoned, we're
described.
talking about what it's zoned for.
It could be a metal building
Yeah,
that's 26, 28 feet high there.
yeah.
Not pretty. It could be semis coming in and going. It could be 3 shifts of people. It could make some noise. Who knows?
Mr. Silvestri?
I don't know how to handle it any
I thought he was
different.
done.
C1 would have been, I would have been happy with that.
You
If you
know,
took that 2.25 acres and made that C3, I'd be happy with it. Because that's the dental office, there's restrictions are there. Yes,
I just want to say that I guess when I ponder this decision, I never want to make a decision to hamper the progress of a developer based on 1,000,001 options that could happen. And I know this council has made some difficult decisions in the past because we had interested parties, to make some improvements to our city and to bring in business. And we changed some zoning at great risk that there could be a number of things that go in. I remember the discussion when the little Express Hotel went up on the north end there by the, it's now the Greystone facility, right in the parking lot of that. And next to Greystone there and next to Certified Angus. So, and there was concern about changing the zoning there. But the person had vision and they had capital and they wanted to invest in our city, and they proved that this could be a really beneficial addition to what was already there. And I see that this way. I mean, you want to talk about traffic from dental offices and medical establishments, Milltown Road. When you come up that curve around Milltown Road, there's people coming and going at all hours. I mean, personally, I would rather see a coming and going all day till 5 o'clock during business hours than I would shift change. I mean, I worked at Rubbermaid. I lived through shift change on a regular basis, and the floodgates of traffic is a nightmare compared to a trickle of traffic every half hour, someone coming or going throughout the business day. So
I can tell you that I've got 2 dentists as neighbors, and they don't even work 5 days a week, let alone after 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Did you notice
I'll
that all of the
rest my case
dentists,
on that.
have you noticed all the dentists in Worcester are closed on Friday? I think they got together and planned.
They got nice hours.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
like I said, I don't have a lot of, I guess, concern. I guess my concerns have been mitigated, and I plan to support it this evening, so, thank you.
Ms. Knappich?
I would like to follow up. I'd like to point out that when the zoning change came for the Holiday Inn, that was already an area that's not residential. What we're talking about here is we've got not a few houses and not a few neighborhoods. We have a lot of houses and several neighborhoods in that
There are
same
houses
area.
right across the street from the
Right
entrance,
across
from the
the
hotel.
street.
Right across the street from the hotel on Riffle. There are houses directly across the street.
There's an entry to housing, yes. But still, I mean,
Don't
we've got
misstate the
people
housing.
who built relying on what the zoning was gonna be. And again, part of my concern is the congestion, part of my concern is the traffic a big part of my concern, quite frankly, is I have to agree, I think the zoning with excluding medical and dental facilities from business offices doesn't make any sense. It's like saying you can have a dentist office, but you can't have a lawyer's office. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that's something that really, really needs to be looked at. And I guess I'd ask Mr. Baker also, why couldn't you go with C1?
Because the medical and dentist done fit
Oh,
in C1.
okay, that doesn't fall under that zoning.
We had to come up to C3 to fit them in.
Okay.
I really,
I agree with you, though, where
The two
dental,
fees
medical
we have-
offices, lawyers' offices should be all available in
the
C1.
rest of it, we can do whatever later.
Yeah, I think it's shameful that we've got to put somebody through this because of our zoning being inconsistent, in
Right.
my opinion. And I know Mr. Baker has no plans of putting in a microbrewery or a medical marijuana dispensary, but who knows who's gonna own that land in the future? And who knows what's gonna happen in the future? And those are my concerns.
The other part of that is with not the curb cuts out on 585, it's gonna be like the road that we put up in the north end, the access road, where most people are gonna enter from Enterprise Drive rather than 585. So there's not gonna be a traffic situation there. I mean, I have warehouses there, and we have 20 or 30 semis coming a day, or more than that sometimes, but they're back on Enterprise Drive, and most of the curb cuts are gonna be from there.
And most of those come through Long Road and on Beck Orville, right?
That Enterprise turns onto Long
Right.
Road, at where the Daily Record building was.
Right.
In that area.
Okay.
And it's a cul-de-sac on the other.
Okay, so there's just the one, so there would be the one access from Long Road and then the one access from 585.
There's one access, there's one road goes in that's called Merritt Drive,
No.
and then there's one curb cut allowed between Merritt Drive and Fastenal. So, I mean, it really, we've got it controlled pretty well.
I think Mr. Myers has one more thing to say.
Yeah, just in summary, one, I think that we have a developer who has a proven track record in our community, have done very great developments that we've all benefited from throughout the many years that Mr. Baker has been doing development in our community. I trust that he does what he says he's going to do, because he always has. I don't understand why a business professional office or a contractor's office is zoned differently than a dental office. That doesn't make sense, and we can't address that today, but we certainly probably should in the future. I think that this is a good use for the property. I understand the hurdles that are there with conditional use. The planning commission that we put in place to review these things in detail and bring us their recommendation has voted to approve. And like my fellow councilman who's no longer with us, Mr. Ansel, likes to say, that's why those people are there. And unless there's underlying conditions that we might find that we would want to go against their recommendation, I tend to want to go along with it. So I plan to support it tonight. Thank you.
I agree with the point Mr. Myers saying is, we have a planning commission, and that's why it's there. And I'm not taking anyone from the city to task, and certainly not the least Mr. Marion. I've sat here a long time. If the best argument that the city can come up with in terms of against something that it doesn't comply with the comprehensive plan, well, this city would never have grown if we had to be locked in. Comprehensive plan is not etched in stone. It was developed at the time what seemed reasonable. Times change. If we had the comprehensive plan and it was etched in stone, all we would have here anymore are buggy whip manufacturers and blacksmiths. So, for someone to be saddled with what apparently looks like to be some sort of oversight or overthinking with regard to what you can do in the existing zoning area. I think you have to look at what the planning commission said and, you know, the guidance that what council is supposed to use is, does it meet the requirements for rezoning? So those are the issues that we have to look at. If I had a crystal ball, maybe we could look at what could possibly put there, but I think those are the parameters that this council needs to remind itself of. And then there's issues down the road with regard to as the development, if it's approved, continues. So that's my take on it. You guys get to do the hard job of actually voting on it. I can only express my opinion, and as Dennis Miller would say, I might be wrong, but it is my opinion.
Well, I would remind everyone, I believe I was even a part of this body when we voted to approve the zoning code changes recently. So it is something that I believe, you know, was overlooked or perhaps not fully considered at the time, but it's certainly something that, you know, maybe we should address when the time is right. So that being said.
Anything further? Seeing none, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Knappich,
No.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
and Reynolds.
Yes.
All right, ordinance number 2022-11 is approved. So that brings us to ordinance number 2022-12, which will be again presented by Ms. Warden. You go, be glad you don't have to do these on a frequent basis, but I appreciate you stepping in. Yes.
You know, I threw out my notes after the last meeting, and I had to go through and do this all again.
That's why you always type them and save them
I
to
know.
a flash drive or your hard drive.
One day I'll learn.
I never throw anything out I type. So before I get back to you, Mr. Paulo, would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2022-12, an ordinance amending Part 11 zoning of the codified ordinances of the City of Worcester, Ohio to rezone land to C3 General Commercial for property located on Noble Drive.
Ms. Warden, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This is another request to change zoning of a parcel of land. This one consists of 2.295 acres and is located on the west side of Noble Drive, the north side of Bendon Drive, and the south side of Back Orville Road. Currently, the land is zoned I-1, or Office and Limited Industrial, and the request is to rezone it to C3 or General Commercial. The area is, to the north of the property is currently zoned C3. Mr. Matthew Long is the one requesting this change to match the zoning to the north, which would then enhance permitted uses and make the property more attractive to potential developers. During the April 7th Planning Commission meeting, the commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request, and at the May 16th council meeting, a public hearing took place where Mr. Long spoke in favor of the request, as did Mr. Marion from the city, citing that the rezoning would remain consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. And I don't think we have anyone else. I don't see Mr. Long here this evening.
Well, I should add, Mr. Drushel's here, and
Oh, okay.
if you want to direct any questions, Mr. Druschel said he'd be willing to answer them.
I'm here for Mr. Long to answer questions. I have no presentation other than what's been said.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions before we, I guess I should say I'm going to make a motion to move this to third and final this evening.
Oh, all right. So a motion to suspend the rules by Ms. Warden. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Would you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri.
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
and Knappich.
Yes.
Okay, the rules have been suspended. I look to you again, Ms. Warden.
Thank you. I would like to move to adopt, please.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Warden. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Okay, questions?
Questions, anyone? This one's a bit more straightforward, and there seem to be no concerns on the city's behalf based on the adjacent zoning, so.
I will say two things, I guess. First of all, thank you for covering my absence at the last meeting. I'm sorry to dump this on you and as far as taking these, but you've done a great job. And I can say that because, one of the advantages now of our technology is I was able to watch last month's meeting, and so I did see the public hearings on these.
Oh, good.
And both, so.
Thanks.
Well, I'm glad you did your homework. I would be disappointed otherwise there, Mr. Reynolds.
Yeah, so I guess if there are no further questions.
Okay. Nothing else, then, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
and Knappich.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance number 2022-12 passes. Brings us to the second reading of resolution number 2022-20. It'll be presented by Mr. Sanders. Before I turn it over to you, Mr. Sanders, I will ask Mr. Paulo to please read the title.
Resolution number 2022-20, a resolution providing for the annual tax budget for fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2023.
Mr. Sanders, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we discussed in the public hearing, and as Mr. Dordia had outlined some of the high-level parts of the tax budget, unless at this point, I would just motion to suspend the rules of council and place this on third and final reading.
All right. Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Sanders. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion because I too watched the meeting on YouTube
Oh, you
last
got-
week, or during 2 weeks ago.
Two gold
so.
stars, one for Mr. Reynolds
did
and one for
hear all the
Mr.
comments.
Myers.
Watched it too.
And now Ms. Knappich.
So you sort of had a quorum.
We were lonely here without all of you.
Yeah, we were lonely, yeah.
I
Okay.
do think that under the temporary rules that for COVID, we could have participated remotely for the last time.
Yeah,
Because I think those were effective through the end of May.
Yeah, we could have.
yeah. Yeah, but why ruin a good day away from, the mundane world of the work world? And I know that you live to come to council meetings, but sometimes vacations and things like that should take priority, especially with family matters. So, did we have a second on the,
Myers,
second.
Myers, yes.
I just need to call roll.
Yes, please call. the
Please,
roll.
please do.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Knappich,
Yes.
and Myers.
Yes.
Okay, the rules have been suspended.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Sanders,
Second.
second by Mr. Myers. Any additional discussion? As I said, this is something we have to get in a timely fashion because it helps determine what the rate will be set. The heavy lifting will then be when we look at the budget as we've passed and how that's going to be appropriated, which usually takes place starting in November. Seeing nothing further, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Knappich,
Yes.
and Myers.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 2022-20 passes. I guess the administration and their managers will start sharpening their pencils sometime this summer to have the appropriations ready to be presented, usually the first meeting in November or the second, depending on the circumstances. So, and the last piece of unfinished business is ordinance number 2022-13, which will be presented by Ms. Knappich and Before I get to you, Ms. Knappich, I will ask Mr. Paulo to please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2022-13, an ordinance amending Chapter 105 of the codified ordinances of the City of Worcester, Ohio, entitled Wards and Boundaries.
Ms. Knappich, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We had discussed this, you folks had discussed it at the last meeting. The city of Worcester has grown, as shown by the last census that was done. And we've actually grown by 4.26%, which over the 2010 count, which is pretty good. We have 27,232 residents here in the city of Worcester, pursuant to the latest census. And so we really have seen some growing. Although for cities of over 25,000 people, we are permitted to have as many as 6 wards. Our Constitution requires that we just have 4. So the city suggested that we make some changes in the boundaries to the wards, the 4 wards that we have here. Ward 1 has changed, they've increased by 286 people. Ward 2 has increased by 222. Ward 3 has increased by 407. And Ward 4 has increased by 198. And the new boundaries, I can go through all of those if you'd like, but they're set out in the ordinance. And they're not great changes, but we are growing, and this reflects the growth of our community. So unless anyone objects, I'm going to move this to third and final reading.
Well, I'll take that as a motion.
A motion to move this
If they
to,
object, they can
Yes.
vote against it.
yes, I'm going to ask to move this, or
All
move
right.
to move this to third and final reading.
All right. Motion to suspend the rules by Ms. Knappich. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sanders. Would you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Knappich,
Yes,
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay, the rules have been suspended. I look to you again, Ms. Knappich.
motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sanders. Any discussions, questions?
I would like to bring one thing up. I noticed in this evening's packets that a few of the maps are missing.
Were they?
Yeah, the one that shows all of the changes on the same map. So I was just going to ask if, in case anybody wants to access it for, from home online, if that could be added into the file.
Sure.
I know it's on last meeting.
Yeah, I just took,
So-
I just took everything from the previous. and
Yeah, I
did it,
noticed today
so-
when I was looking through it, I'm like, wait a second, it's missing a couple
Okay.
for some reason, but.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've got everything from this time and last time.
Other than that, is there anything further from anyone from council? Seeing none, Ms. DiPaolo, would you please call the roll?
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Knappich,
Yes,
Myers,
Yes.
and Sanders.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2022-13 passes. Now, we flip to new business. Resolution number 2022-21 is the first item under new business. It'll be presented by Mr. Sanders, slated for 3 readings. If you would, please, Ms. Apollo, please read the title.
Resolution number 2022-21, a resolution authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the State of Ohio Department of Development for a Small Cities Community Development Block Grant and a Critical Infrastructure Grant, to accept such monies if awarded, to execute any necessary documents in connection therewith, and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Sanders, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is our biannual situation that we do related to the CBDG money or CDBG money. And we usually are eligible and asking for $150,000. With this particular year, through much discussion I know that the administration had with the state of Ohio, there's also a critical infrastructure grant up to $500,000 that at this point, as we read through the legislation, was potentially going to be earmarked for the renovation of Fire Station Number 1. So the tie-in with these is the fact that through our normal grant allocation, we would, the $150,000 we would request, we would allocate $22,500 towards Viola Startzman Clinic. And in this particular case, we would usually use that additional $127,500 for some type of additional infrastructure work, i.e. traffic lights, as we've done in the past. In this case, that money also would be allocated, the $127,500 would be allocated towards Fire Station Number 1 upgrades. In the allocation base, the way we have it set up, it leads us to have a possibility of receiving this additional $500,000 from the state as part of this critical infrastructure grant. So obviously, or that's why it's been set up in the way it has been. The other issue with this, or other item with this, is the fact that if you noticed, they would like us to pass this evening because of the first round application needs to be into the state by June 15th. Unfortunately, through much discussion with the state, I know Mr. Belay went back and forth with the state discussing the viability and you know, whether or not this was going to be something that they would look at or just reject. And it took them quite a while to finally get an answer from the state stating that the state would in fact look at this with an open mind and would not reject it. So consequently, that's why we're up against the time frame and why it's put together the way it is. And I guess before we go any further, is there anything, Jonathan or Mr. Millay, that you would like to add to that? I mean, I'm sure you have a whole lot more to talk about, but.
No, yeah, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Sanders. That's the perfect summary of the situation. And again, these are two separate grants. If awarded and approved, it would fall under a singular grant agreement.
Thank you. With that, I would motion to suspend the rules of council and place this on third and final reading.
All right, motion by Mr. Sanders to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Mr. Paulo, would you please call the roll on the suspension motion to suspend the rules?
Warden,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Knappich,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
And Silvestri.
Yes.
The rules are suspended. Mr. Sanders.
I would motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Sanders. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knappich. Any further discussion? I see that, you know, here we're asking for a return of some of the tax dollars the citizens of Worcester has sent down to Columbus. That's always a good thing, and based on the circumstance, I'm not sure that I can equate much difference than improvements to a fire station as opposed to improvements on at an intersection with traffic lights. So, you know, the allocation of the additional amount other than what's given to Viola Startzman, I think it's, to me, apples to apples. Anyways, that's my thought. Anything else? If not, Mr. Paulo, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Warden,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Knappich,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
And Silvestri.
Yes.
Resolution number 2022-21 passes. Our final piece of legislation this evening is resolution number sounds like I'm repeating myself, is 2022-22. Before I get back to Mr. Sanders, would you please please read the title, Mr. Paul?
Resolution number 2022-22, a resolution adopting an update to the City of Worcester Citizen Participation Plan in connection with community development block grant activities in the City of Worcester and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Sanders, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we have worked through this same process relating to the participation plan for the City of Worcester citizens in 2013 and 2017, this is an obligation that we have to do again as part of the community development block grant activities. And so ultimately, what we have before us this evening is the new participation plan, which I'm not sure that it was necessarily all that dramatically different than the one from 2017. I might, at this point, I think I'll call on Mr. Millay to clarify if there's any major changes from 17 to 22.
There are none.
Okay, well, so at this point, then, this is just an obligational, something that we just have to do due to the timing with the state, and so consequently, that's why it's in front of us this evening. And with that, the fact that it hasn't changed, again, I would motion to suspend the rules of council and place this on third and final reading.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Sanders. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Mr. Paulo, would you, for the last time, call the roll on a motion to suspend the rules?
Reynolds?
Yes.
Knappich?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Sanders?
Yes.
Silvestri?
Yes.
And Warden.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended. Mr. Sanders?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Sanders. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knappich. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Reynolds?
Yes.
Knappich?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Sanders?
Yes.
Silvestri?
Yes.
And Warden.
Yes.
Resolution number 2022-22 passes. This brings us to the miscellaneous portion. We have one person who has signed up to speak from the public, Linda Smith, if he would. Please come to the lectern, state your name and you have 2 minutes to speak on your topic.
Okay. My name is Linda Smith. I live at Bayberry Cove at 3108, and I hope my comments or questions are not out of order tonight. I just want to ask some clarification about the properties up at Oak Hill and Milltown that we've talked about in previous meetings here. I've got the impression from the discussions that there is a plan that the cost for the improvements to the allotment with water, sewage, and other utilities will be passed on to the potential property owners through tax assessments. If that is correct, then I wonder what you might estimate those assessments to be for each of the families or the individual lots that would be available in that area.
Go ahead.
That's not correct.
Okay.
There's no assessments to them, that's the TIF, tax increment financing. People are already paying their property taxes. A portion of those will be redirected to pay for the improvements to roadways and utilities.
Okay, so it'll be evenly distributed among the residents of the community then?
Nobody's going to pay any more than they are now.
Okay.
They just continue to pay their property taxes like they always have.
Okay.
No additional cost.
Thank you. The other question I have is regarding the power generating or storage facility or whatever it is up there on Oak Hill Road, adjacent to the property. I wonder what the environmental impact might be for that facility on the air and water quality in that residential area.
I assume you're talking about the substation that AEP installed, and our assumption is they have all of the EPA
We have no control over that.
Pardon me?
We have no control over that installation. That's all under Ohio law, and they would have to comply with it. If you have questions, you need to contact AEP.
Okay. Well, I just was curious about how that might impact the neighborhood if there were
We
any.
have no control
Well,
over
I
that.
understand that, but I'm just asking, just curious about whether or not those kind of units create some environmental issues. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, starting with Mr. Myers, we'll start the miscellaneous portion for council.
Thank you, President Beitendijk. I just want to take a couple of minutes this evening. There was an article recently in the newspaper, and my name was referenced in regard to sort of being on city council, which it shouldn't have been. My participation in meetings with the Racial Justice Coalition and the NAACP, as well as the Worcester Police Force, were done as a concerned citizen and not related to my role on this fine council. Just in a brief overview, though, I started meeting with the Racial Justice Coalition and NAACP representatives about a year and a half ago in order to get a better understanding of their 5 policy goals. After I did that and learned more, I met with Chief Fisher and Assistant Chief Rotolo to see how those dovetailed or didn't dovetail perhaps with the practices of our department. I was very pleased when I met with them to learn we were already basically acting in a manner that was consistent with those policy goals on a daily basis. The training and behaviors of our officers were consistent with those. So my next step was to try to literally to put those 2 groups together and facilitate a dialogue. Both parties were extremely polite, cordial. The conversations over a number of meetings. Our police chief was, as he's always said, his door is open. He's happy to listen to anybody at any time. We may not always agree, but he's happy to listen. The meetings were very much collaborative and cooperative. I just want to point out that after I met with them and learned that these things were pretty consistent, they had done a public records request of the department's policy manual. And through those dialogues and those kind of conversations, we did determine that we all felt, yeah, there could be some clarification or definitions that were not in the policy manual, but did in fact, we were doing those things or not doing the things, depending on how you look at it, already anyway. The department doesn't train and never has on chokeholds or carotid holds. One of the changes was to add a definition of carotid holds. Chief Fisher pointed out, well, there's no definition because we don't do them, so it didn't need to be in the policy manual. I think the point was that you also don't have in there that you can't hit a suspect with a brick. Well, we don't do that, so it doesn't need to be in the policy manual. But we did make that change and added that definition. So carotid holds and chokeholds have never been taught. They're not taught at the academy any longer. They're not taught here locally. I think the example that was given is officers in stressful situations like all of us are going to react with our instincts and our training, what you've been taught to do, how you're going to react. And since those things are not trained, they don't practice them, they're not going to be utilized in our town. I read the recommendation that said if you're right-handed, go home tonight and try to brush your teeth with your left hand. If it's not something you normally do, you're not likely to be very comfortable doing it. The next topic was the no-knock warrants. The last 2 chiefs of police for the city of Worcester have never asked for a no-knock warrant under any conditions. It's not something that's done. It puts the officers as well as the people in the dwelling at risk. The best practices and policies of the Worcester Police Department, and this was added, it was what they were doing anyway, but we added it to the manual, is to do a daytime knock and announce warrant. It's safer for all concerned, and that is what our department has been doing. The other 2 points that were part of the goals that we did spend time on in the meetings but weren't really in the press release, we talked about some transparency with uses of force. When we did a records request and reviewed for all the departments in the county, they felt that there wasn't a lot of transparency in that. We did learn from Chief Fisher and Assistant Chief Rotolo that the Office of Criminal Justice Services actually online has every law enforcement agency in the state. You can dial in and find right down to Wooster. Whatever department you want to do research on has all of those statistics there, readily available and transparent. in real time. So they're published online. And the last one we did spend some time on, diversity of hiring. While we do make great strides, as you guys know on council, we're currently looking for 4 additional officers. We're always looking for officers. I push back a little bit on the folks. I support the NAACP and the Racial Justice Coalition. I'm a member of the NAACP and have been for 5 or 6 years now. We push back a little bit, that their relationships with some people in our community might enhance our opportunities to hire a more diverse group of folks. They may have contact or relationships with people that I myself wouldn't have in my role in this community. So I think that was a good dialogue. We talked about maybe having officers talk at the schools or at the Worcester Boys and Girls Club, kind of what it's like to be a police officer in Worcester, and I think that would be a very positive step. So we did take some positive steps through that, and I just wanted to say that, the meetings were very positive for all concerned. I was at every meeting, both alone with the racial justice representatives in the NAACP or alone with our police leadership, and I was at all the joint meetings. They were all very positive and professional. I want to tell you that we're doing or not doing, so to speak, not doing no knock warrants, all of those things. We did make 5 minor changes or edits to the policy manual. They're very, very minor, but I just want to say I think that I was proud to be a part of our community where A, we don't have some of the problems that you see in the national headlines here because of the leadership of our department, and B, when people wanted to discuss and address some of these topics, we were all open and willing to do so. So I just want to say thank you to those representatives that I met with over the last year or so from the NAACP, the Racial Justice Coalition, and our outstanding leadership of Chief Fisher and Assistant Chief Rotolo. Thanks again for all your help. If anybody would like to see the 5 sections that had edits, I have the actual policy document here, and I can share that with anybody that would like. Sorry that I was a little long, but thank you.
Mr. Sylvester.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of things. I wanted to thank the mayor for his comments at the beginning of the meeting. I did hear a little bit of feedback about the Airstream rally. I think it was a great event, but there was the suggestion that came out in my discussions with one particular business owner that I think spoke for many and said that, that it probably would have been beneficial to have the trailers themselves at the fairgrounds. So it really was nice to hear that that was offered preemptively prior to the event. So I think it was a great event. I think there was a lot of positivity that came out of it, and I hope that if we ever do it again, that group will be open to that minor change. Also, I wanted to commend the 4 sworn officers that were mentioned earlier, and also Officer in Charge Jordan Telquist for her handling of the May 3rd event. And just goes to show that we have a fine department who work every day to make sure that we can be safe and stay safe here in the city of Worcester. So thank you so much.
Ms. Warden.
Thank you. I recently was able to attend a grain bin safety training out at the Wayne County Regional Training Facility, which, if you've not been there, is a really impressive place. And I just wanted to note that a couple of the gentlemen who are conducting the training are firefighters in Smithville and in Sterling, respectively. They both commented on how fortunate we are in Wayne County to have the Worcester Fire Department, both its personnel and its equipment, to provide necessary assistance throughout the county. And they've been called on or have just shown up almost unexpectedly, although I think people now just know that they're going to be there. And I just thought it was really nice, and I think our firefighters might like to hear that they're valued and supported by their peers. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Reynolds?
No comments.
Ms. Knappich?
I have nothing else to add.
Mr. Sanders?
Just a quick question to the administration. We're still scheduled for a safety committee meeting on the 21st of June at 6:30. Okay. I see since Mr. Cabot isn't here this evening, I thought I'd just bring that up and make sure. Very good. That's all I have.
Well, I'd like to give a shout out to the police department and our chief, having been involved in some of the matters. I know that Chief Fisher has been more than accommodating in terms of providing records as requested. Mr. Scavelli has helped put them together, and the rest of the administration in a timely fashion. And I guess I take a little umbrage that it seems that in that newspaper article that there was a veiled accusation that our department is not transparent. Well, I'll tell you, our department is as transparent as they come. Our officers are some of the best trained, and our chief has shown sterling leadership, and it's obviously starts from the top and filters on down. And I'd like to say that I think perhaps we were painted in the same broad brush as what other departments might have been or not been, but transparent, non-transparent, we ain't. And I take umbrage that there was like I said, a veiled accusation that we are hiding something or have hidden something. And I know for a fact that's not a case, because we have been over backwards to respond to every public record request that has been made. And I know that we have responded to have provided hundreds, if not 1,000 pages of records to those that have requested it. So keep up the good work, Chief Fisher, and thank you for allowing us to have a department not only we can be proud of, we are secure in our knowledge that when it comes to such a situation as Jordan Telquist faced, your officers will do the right thing, and that's a great comfort, at least at my end. So thank you very much. Oh, and Mr. Silvestri has moved to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, majority. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.